This is The Other Side. I'm your guy, Xavier Ware. I want to thank you all so very much for watching. This is the first Zoom episode that I'm doing, and my guest at this time is none other than the great Mike Ezekiel. He is the Director of Athletic Communications and Operations at McMurry University. I want to ask you, brother, first off, I want to tell you thank you for doing this, and I want to ask you, how are you doing, especially during these very arduous times that we're in?
Man, first of all, thank you for having me on the other side. I've been following your work, Xavier, for a long time. I've been a huge fan of you, and I'm proud of what you're doing, and I'm honored to be your versus Zoom guest. I don't know if my face is the one that you want for your debut. At least you have Kobe in your background, so I think we're all set there. But, man, given the circumstances, I'm doing well. COVID and what's going on right now in our world, it's been kind of tough on everybody, but for the most part, I'm well, and just being able to keep in touch with all my friends via Zoom, FaceTime, phone calls, text, that's been really encouraging. So for the most part, all is well, and I hope you are as well.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Now, typically I would love to start with the genesis of you and you wanting to, like, why you wanted to get into the business. But I do want to ask you this. Tell me, what was the atmosphere like around campus when they finally decided to pull the plug on all spring sports?
Man, so my experience was a little different. I was actually in North Carolina covering the track and field national championships, which is the pinnacle of basically, it's the pinnacle of athletics. You want to go to a national championship. And we had a triple jumper named Sean Germany. He was an Oklahoma State transfer here at McMurry, and he was the second best triple jumper in the nation at the time. And we thought he had a shot to win it all. And we were one day out from him performing. So me, him, and his track coach, Cody Knight, were all in North Carolina, traveling out of Texas. And the day before he went to compete, they decided to pull the plug on March Madness. And then the very next day, the day before his competition, they pulled the plug on all national championships. And that included us, even though we were there. So we had to get a flight back the very next day. And you could just tell how it affected Sean, because he's never won a national championship, but he's been very close every year. And as a junior, we thought he was going to win it. So seeing him, that was my first experience of seeing our scholar athletes react to this. So I actually wasn't on campus, but, he handled it in stride, but then it kind of started to hit him the next day when we were supposed to compete, or he was supposed to compete. And then getting back to campus, our baseball team was on their way to a university about 4 hours away and had to turn around halfway.
Wow.
Our tennis team was on the way back from Florida. So we were, traveling. We had teams all over the country that had to come back. But I think when we got back to campus and people had to start leaving campus, and that's kind of when it started to set in. So it was pretty tough for our staff, very tough for our scholar athletes, and we really hated to see it happen.
Absolutely. Now, if you're able to tell me this, are they going to grant some seniors an extra year of eligibility? How is that going to work?
Yeah, so that actually came out maybe within 2 weeks of COVID actually happening, because the NCAA, a lot of people were calling for that, and we were kind of wondering what would happen. But the NCAA did announce back, I believe in April, that seniors would have the option to get another year of eligibility. For some of our seniors, they're already at the end of their road. They wanted to finish school, move on to their careers. So for them, it was kind of a tough situation to end early. But for others, they are able to come back and use that year of eligibility. And it's been very well received. And, I'm sure for our department, it's great, but I'm sure all over the nation, people are rejoicing for that.
Absolutely. So before you were granted the title of the Director of Athletic Communications and Operations, take me back, man, to when you initially wanted to get involved in this business, right? Like, what made Mike Ezekiel want to chase the life of being in sports?
Man, it was way before I knew you, man. I was 5 years old. I remember I used to lay down in my living room floor with my feet on the TV, looking up at the TV, watching Dave Neal call games, the early morning SEC games, and then, watching College Game Day. In fact, shout out to one of my childhood friends, Jordan Bird, and his brothers. We always, every day, every Saturday, we would play in the yard, 6 a.m., throw the football around, get back inside just in time for College Game Day. And we would sometimes mute the TV and call the games ourselves, and we always wanted to do that. And I think that carried over into the rest of my life. I just always wanted to be involved in sports somehow. And as you can tell, I like to talk. I feel like my first answer was very long, by the way. So, but I love to talk about sports. I'm passionate about it. That's really where it started. And then I realized in college it was something that I could pursue, and I got around the right people and made a lot of mentors, connections, a lot of friends in the business. And here I am now at 26 years old in a director position, and it's been awesome, dude.
When I first met you, you already had your feet and hands in so many different places and projects. But what was the first job that you ever had in the business of sports?
Ooh, man, I think the very first time I ever did anything, I believe I was 17. I was a junior in high school, and I did some radio games with a guy named Ronnie Pinnell in Florence, Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
He worked for the Mars Hill Panthers. I don't know if you remember Mars Hill from your time in Florence.
Uh-huh.
A smaller school. They actually won a state championship in football, I believe it was, but their basketball team was good at the time. And he let me come on and do halftime stats. And I just took stats, and then at halftime I read them. And dude, I was so nervous. It was a radio game, maybe like, I don't know, 50 people listening, but I was terrified. But that was really my first taste of it. And then I got to do some PA announcing gigs at my high school. So that was kind of how I broke in. And Xavier, you may have knew me at this time. I had a very country accent.
Yeah.
I had to work on that, but I worked on that, got that cleaned up while I was in college. And then Jeff McIntyre, rest in peace, my friend, gave me an opportunity to write for the Times Daily. I was working for the football team at UNA, and then later down the road, they asked me if I wanted to be their sideline reporter.
Mm-hmm.
And, I worked at that and did that for a couple of years and really enjoyed it. And that really launched my career, working for the Floor Owl as a sports editor, managing editor, and moving on to the sports information field. I think all of that just kind of built up together. Oh, and in radio for Fox Sports Shoals. I need to give that a shout out too. So a lot of different things going on at one time for me at that moment.
So speak about some of the difficulties that you had early on when you initially got started. Like, did you ever feel like you were overwhelmed doing so many different things? Because I know a lot of times when you're in something that you're really, truly passionate about, it doesn't always feel like work, you know what I mean? But at the same time, you can kind of fatigue yourself when you do so many different things. So just talk about some of the difficulties that you had when you were doing all of these things.
That was certainly one difficulty I had, just being overwhelmed, trying to do so many things at once. But I kind of knew that my hard work was what was going to help me set myself apart. I've always thought of myself as the jack of all trades, but the master of none. I was around a lot of great broadcasters. I never felt that I was in that realm. I've been around a lot of great writers. I never felt that I was in that realm. I felt that I was good at some things, but not great at anything. And so I kind of thought that my way into the business would be just being able to be a multimedia guy, a guy that can write, a guy that can talk, a guy that can announce, and maybe even take photos, just do a little bit of everything. And so I felt like my hard work was what was going to set me apart, but also just learning from people that are talented at one thing really helped me out. And I was able to take things from different people. And I still feel that way today. I still feel like there's people that are super talented at one role and have made a lot of money and made a lot of success in that one role. I never thought that I could do that. And so I think the biggest difficulty for me breaking in was I wanted to be an announcer more than anything, but I realized, maybe announcing is not for me. Maybe I need to find another way. Maybe I need to use my writing and in my, my other abilities to facilitate that. And so that was the biggest difficulty, I think, for me.
Was that something that mentally you struggle with coping with, understanding that, okay, announcing may not be for me, I have to do other things? Like, I'm sure initially maybe it hurt, but obviously in the long run, it's definitely paid out for you, right? And is announcing something that you would love to go back to?
Well, the thing is, announcing is something I still get to do in my current role.
Okay.
On a smaller scale, I get to do play-by-play for our games. I announce some of our games. I make radio appearances. I get to shoot radio commercials. So I'm doing all of these things on a smaller scale. I just have to do a lot of other things too. But man, I think there was a little part of me trying to break into the business, realizing that, there's not a lot of radio stations or a lot of broadcast entities that wants a guy that has a country accent.
Mm-hmm.
I was preached that so many times by my mentors, my teachers. They were like, "Man, you got to work on that accent. You've got to tighten up your eyes a little bit because, you don't want." I'm Mike Ezekiel, Fox Sports Shows. I'm Mike Ezekiel with McMurry Athletics. And you knew me at that time.
That's the Mike I met. Yeah.
That's the Mike you knew. And I think you saw that Mike develop.
Absolutely.
Being around the right people. And so that's kind of my story, man. It's just that was one thing I really wanted to work on. I've had people tell me now in Abilene that didn't know that side of me. They were like, "Man, I would have never known that was you." And why wouldn't you want to? There was a sports reporter that was like, "Dude, do you ever want to get into this side of it?" And I said, "Dude, I don't know. I think I'm happy where I'm at now." But to hear him say that he thought that I would be capable of that meant a lot to me. I think it showed that I got around the right people and I had a lot of great mentors that helped me with that part of my career.
Absolutely. And look, man, part of why I admire you the way that I do, obviously, because you are just a good, genuine soul, a really positive spirit to be around, but also you are one of the most hardest working individuals I have ever met in my life, man. Like if ever I saw Mike, he was working or he was on his way to do some work. You know what I mean? And it's something again, I've always admired your work ethic. You have a drive that people who you may not even know are looking at you and saying, wow, I want to, whatever I'm trying to do, I need to have that level of focus and determination in order to get it done. And just because somebody tells me no in one area doesn't mean I still can't be in this field. I just got to go carve my own niche, right? And just make my own lane. And you've definitely done that. I want to ask you, because you did mention some mentors and stuff like that. Who are some of your influences that you look up to in the business?
Man, there are so many. Guys that I've been around personally. The first one comes to mind right away. That just really helped me, I guess, at the peak of my, right before graduation while I was at North Alabama, is Benjamin Ray. Mm. He's the current play-by-play guy at North Alabama. And, we had a similar story where he went on to be a GA in the SID field. And he came back, worked at Fox Sports Shoals for a little while, and then went on to the University of North Alabama. And when he first started there and did some play-by-play for them, he kind of took me under his wing. And at that time, I didn't really have that one person in broadcasting that kind of understood everything I was doing. And so I found myself going to Ben's office every single day. We would sit down, talk about, things that I'm doing in class, things I'm doing, projects I'm working on with other people. So Benjamin Ray is definitely one guy that I still keep in touch with a lot, and a guy that I would love to work with again. There's so many other people I can mention. My professors that you and I had together at North Alabama. I look up to a lot of them. I don't think I could name them all because all of them are so important. You can't do one or the other. Absolutely. And that's the thing, man. You know how it is as a multimedia journalist. You have to have mentors in every aspect of what you're doing and not just one. So, Ben came to mind right away. Greg DeWalt, got to give him a shout out. He's semi-retired from the Times Daily. Jeff McIntyre, who passed away last year. In fact, it was a year ago yesterday.
Wow.
So, he was a big part of me getting into the writing side of things. And then, my current mentors right now, Kevin Brown, who I worked with at East Tennessee State for 2 years. Talked to him yesterday on the phone for about an hour. He was a mentor. And then, there's really another guy I want to give a shout out to as well, Matt Zaleski, a guy that we both know. Matt was so integral in helping me clean up my voice a lot, but he was also just there for me and when things got tough. Mm-hmm. And, that's not a guy I always think of right away, but Matt was a big part of where I'm at today too. So I got to give him credit. And there's so many others, man. It's hard to name them all, but those come to mind.
The funny thing about Matt is he helped give me an opportunity by putting me on the air, right? Him having this show every morning from 6 to 8. I remember I would come on Tuesdays, and then very similar to you, right, with the high school basketball games. I guess that he got that from your guy because I would take stats, and then at halftime I'd be able to talk about what I've logged and like what I've seen on the court and things of that nature. And I'm telling you, man, at that point, I remember in my life, that was like the greatest thing I had ever done. I was like, I'm on the radio talking about basketball. Like, this is insane.
Man.
And that was a part of my internship when I was at Big River.
Yeah, so I remember you doing that at Big River, and I think that was one of the special things about our department at that time. You know, you, me, and Austin Peacock were able to do a podcast together. It was like a side project about wrestling. I was able to do a project with a guy named Antonio Macbeth, a student. We covered high school football.
Oh, that's my guy.
Exactly. Matt and I did 2 podcasts. So, and I always thought of Matt. He was a lot older than us, so he kind of had a little bit more wisdom than I did, and maybe some of us. But, I think we all learn from each other. I always looked up to you as how smooth you were in your delivery and how knowledgeable you were about basketball and other sports. I think we all just helped each other, and I think that's why our class at UNA was so special. And to see where we are on now, it's pretty amazing.
No, it is really amazing because I can look at you, I can look at Antonio, I could look at Peacock, and I'm like, wow, like these guys are really, really doing it. And it's crazy because we all kind of started together, you know what I mean? And to see us all branch out doing our own things, but just like you said, we've all learned something from one another. Man, like I said, with you, obviously the drive, the work ethic. With Antonio to me had this just ability to be so confident behind the microphone.
Very much.
And I was just like, wow, man, this guy is you say I'm smooth. I thought Antonio was smooth. You know what I'm saying? It's just very quick-witted and smart. And Peacock, man, Peacock to me is he's just entertaining to just listen to and talk. You know what I mean? I love all of y'all dearly. And the podcast was very, very fun, man. I do miss those days. I really, truly do.
I do too, man. It was fun to just and that was my unwind period, some of this did actually feel like work. I know you talk about, you don't work a day in your life when you love what you do. Mm-hmm. And I did love what I did, but there were also times where I just needed to kick back and show some personality in a podcast about wrestling.
Yeah.
That's something we're all passionate about. And, we were just having fun. We weren't going to put it out anywhere. And, it was just 3 guys, 2 guys and 1 mic, right? Sitting in a studio and just cracking up, talking about our favorite wrestlers. And, man, those were the days. I cherish those. And, man, I wish I still had those podcasts I could go back and listen to.
Man, the funny thing is, I just thought about this. The very first time in the UNA studios I've ever got behind a mic and actually spoke something was you had invited me one time to talk about stuff that was going on at UNA's campus. And I remember, dude, I looked at the mic. I was in the studio with you. I felt intimidated. I said, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this and make it sound good. And obviously, like your very, very first podcast, you can fast forward years later and look back at that and say, oh, I sounded terrible, right? And I was just so uptight. I'm trying to be a stickler, you know what I mean? And it just wasn't it at all. But I do have to credit you for giving me a push and a nudge, you know what I mean? Just to say, hey, man, come on. Like simply you asking me to come and do something just encouraged me to I said, okay, well, maybe I can come back in here again. And you know what I mean? And like, that just kind of opened up this whole new door for me to where I'm like, okay, I can do a podcast while I'm at UNA, and then I can transfer that to wherever else I go in life. You know what I mean? But I do have to give you credit, man. And it's important that I give people their flowers while they are still here. And man, it's just important that man, how much I really have looked up to you, and I appreciate you. And you probably didn't even know it,
Man, in the fact that you say that, just, man, it just makes me happy because I just realized that, that's what we do, man, as colleagues in the business. We're here to build each other up and help each other in ways. And man, I think me inviting you to that podcast helped me more than maybe it did you, just because I was able, I just think you're so raw talented that I was able to observe you. And, maybe at the time I was a little hard-headed and was thinking that I was the best, but I was like, I can learn a lot from everybody. And I just, I think at some point you just have to check your ego at the door and realize we all have something to offer. Yes. And that's what we all did for each other. And it was so fun to do that.
Yeah, man. And early on when I started, I was, again, like I say, intimidated. Then midway, I got in my own head, and then I'm like, oh, this is a competition, because if they get something, that means I don't. And then later on, I learned, I said, no, that's not the case. Just like you said, you can learn from everybody. So it's a matter of, instead of me being intimidated by maybe the success that somebody's having, how about you speak to them, reach out to them, you know what I mean? And learn from them, because everything in life isn't about a competition. No matter what people say, like, we can be in the same business, right? One can be higher than the other, but we can still learn from one another and really help each other grow as people. and as better broadcasters. But I do want to ask you this about your journey. So after you graduated from UNA, you said that East Tennessee State was next, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So graduated in 2017 from North Alabama, moved on. And you graduated in 18, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. So I was a year ahead, I guess. But yeah, so after I graduated, I had already had the job lined up. I think in April was when I took the job at East Tennessee State. And the position was a graduate assistant for sports information. And at that time, I think I was just so set on broadcasting that I thought that being a sports information director for 2 years could launch my broadcast career.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went in with the intention of, doing some stats and game notes and things like that, what an SID would do, promoting social media, but ultimately maybe getting back into broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up leaving for Johnson City, Tennessee in July, about 7 hours from Florence, and kind of not too far from where you are in DC, but I was working with the soccer teams. I was working with baseball, track and field, and then I did game day for football and basketball. So I didn't really have a lot of broadcasting roles. I did some announcing for like public address announcing, but
Mm-hmm.
a lot of it was, promoting, writing stories, press releases, media relations type stuff. And I started growing away from announcing and growing more into just doing a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the turning point in my career. And I'll be honest with you, Zay, I think the first 2 weeks I was there, I didn't think I was cut out for it.
Mm-hmm.
A Division I school, a lot of pressure, a lot of work. You're having to work with these head coaches, that are used to some experienced people that have been there maybe 30 years or so. And then you have a kid that hasn't done this at all hardly,
Mm-hmm.
trying to find their way. I didn't think I was cut out, but I just eventually came around. My boss, Kevin Brown at the time, Michael White, they both put a lot of faith in me. And my coaches even kind of showed some support at times as well. And I think that really helped me for that 2 years. And ultimately, man, I thrived. I made so many relationships there. And ultimately, I think that's what landed me this job now, to be a full-time director. Dude, it was a great experience for sure.
Absolutely. So then tell me, after that, you said that you worked with the with the Mets affiliate team. Was this AA, single A, or triple A?
So no, it was actually below that. So it's rookie league.
Okay.
And so I'll just explain this first. So when I first got to Johnson City in the summer, you kind of learn that it's kind of like a 10-month deal in college athletics where June and July is kind of your downtime.
Okay.
And so us as GAs, we were on a 10-month contract where our rent was still going to be paid because they paid for our rent. That was a big part of the deal because we weren't making money at all hardly.
Okay.
As part of that contract, but we didn't get paid for the summer months. There was there's some Appalachian League teams you could take a job with if you want. And so I started out with my roommate, Mike Gallagher. He was the radio announcer for the Elizabethton Twins. And so that's the rookie league affiliate of the Minnesota Twins.
Okay.
And he let me come on and broadcast a couple of games and, do a few innings here and there. That was a really cool experience. But then I got connected with the Kingsport Mets, which was about 20 minutes away from Johnson City. All the teams in that league are very close. But just to explain it, that league is kind of like it's like the first step if you get drafted. Or there's nobody in that league that's above 22 years old. It's mostly like your high to low drafted guys, maybe some free agents here and there.
Gotcha.
Most guys don't stay in rookie league more than 2-3 years. But one cool thing about rookie league is sometimes you'll get the first round draft pick that they'll start there for a year before moving up in the organization. And so we had the number 5 overall pick one of the 2 years I was in Kingsport. So Jared Kelnick, he's actually in AA now, but he's probably going to be a major leaguer in 2-3 years. So
Gotcha.
Jake DeGrom, you ever heard that name? He started there.
Mets.
Daryl Strawberry. Let's see, Dwight Gooden. I mean, David Wright, Jose Reyes, all these guys played in Kingsport.
They all came from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's unreal. There's a Jason Hensley-Housing. He was a great pitcher at the time. Just so many legends that, if they were ever on the Mets or anywhere else in the MLB, more than likely they were in rookie ball. So I was the PA announcer, did some media relations stuff for them, helped them out with social media. I still keep in touch with a lot of the staff there. Zeke Newton, he's one of my best friends, and we talk every day about some things going on with baseball. But that was another big launching point in my career, I think, being able to have that minor league experience, being around some prospect players and general managers. And every now and then you would have front office people fly down to see the team. So, having that 2 or 3 months, those 2 years was so awesome.
No, absolutely, man. So you keep mentioning PA, doing PA work, and I want to ask you, talk to me about that, because I've always been intrigued by PA announcers. It's one of my weird idiosyncrasies that I have, because I'm like, I can kind of spot certain PA announcers when I watch games, and I'm like, oh, I know that voice. I know what game that is, even if I'm not watching the game, right?
Yeah.
And talk to me about trying to like develop your own style and trying to be energetic and just being confident and having fun with that position.
Man, I think this is such a timely time to talk about that, because I think the difference between, say play-by-play announcing and PA announcing, play-by-play is more of you're calling the action. A PA announcer doesn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
A PA announcer is more, if you're a homer PA announcer, like if you're working for the organization that you're announcing for, you get to be a little energetic. You get to be part of the game day environment.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think it's so timely because The Last Dance just aired, and Ray Clay is one of my idols. I absolutely loved Ray Clay, the voice of the Chicago Bulls at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And just hearing him say, "From North Carolina, Michael Jordan," that was always just with that song, that serious song in the background. I just thought that was amazing, and that was where my style started. I think I was a little overzealous my first few years doing it, but then I got around some people that did some Division I games, some baseball games, and just saw their style, and I was able to kind of tone mine down a little bit. I still brought some excitement, but I also realized that I don't need to make this about myself. If I'm a PA announcer, I need to make it about the action, make a great experience for the game day environment, and not make it about Mike Ezekiel. And I think that was the turning point for me as a PA announcer. And now I've been doing it for, I can't believe I'm saying this, but 7 years as a PA announcer. Just, doing different levels of things, Division I, Division III, minor league baseball. It's been awesome, but it's not about you. It's about the action, and doing that has been awesome.
Tell me this: which sport is the most fun to participate in PA announcing, and which one is the most difficult?
I think basketball is the most fun for me, just because there's always something happening, and it's not that hard. I mean, you have, you're calling fouls, and you're looking up saying how many team fouls, how many individual fouls, who was the individual that fouled. Doing starting lineups in basketball in an arena with a starting lineup song, nothing like that. That is an adrenaline rush I live. I love going through picking, like, I think we used a Rick Ross instrumental this year, and
okay.
our athletes loved it. And when they said, "Hey, who's announcing today? Are you announcing, or do we have another guy?" I said, "I'm announcing." They're like, "Oh, let's go."
Yeah.
That made me so happy that they said that. So, I just find what they like. It's about the athletes, and it's about our fans, and making something fun for them. Basketball was the most fun. The most difficult is probably football, just because there's so much going on. You have to know who ran the ball, how many yards they got, who made the tackle. So in football, it's so important to have a spotter, somebody that's telling you all these things. Like, okay, because if you're looking at one play, you may be looking at who's running the ball. You may miss, a group of 5 guys that had the tackle. Who's the initial contact.
Gotcha.
You're having to look for all these things constantly, and it's not easy. So I would say football is the most difficult, but basketball is the most fun.
That's a lot of fun, man. That is so much fun. So tell me now, at your position at McMurry, first off, tell me, what do you do? And just speak about your level of excitement when you took the position and how you feel now that you've been in it for a while.
So I guess just giving you the whole timeline, I took the job in July. So, and man, hopefully this will be an encouragement to you and whoever else is listening that's trying to break into the business. I think I put out 38 applications, and I probably heard back from 12, and I was only offered 3. So, you put yourself out there, you think that you're talented, and you probably know what your worth is,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not always going to happen the way you think it will. So McMurry wasn't even on my radar. I was kind of dead set in my mind on Division One, Division One, Division One. You know, I'm already Division One. I want to stay Division One. I just think it's, you know, I at that time I thought it was the highest level, and that's what I wanted. But I was, you know, I interviewed at, you know, South Carolina, Kansas State, pretty close to getting those jobs, but you know, I was going to be really low down. I was going to be a post-grad intern. But then I realized that, you know, maybe I can shoot a little higher. And I did get some calls, but I started to get discouraged, Zay, kind of in the process. You know, I was, you know, about June or July, I was starting to get a little bit discouraged. But then I get a call from my old boss, Michael White, and he was like, hey, I want you to call this guy and just see what you think. It's a Division III school. If you don't have anything lined up, at least give him a call. And I was thinking in my head, well, it's Division III. I don't know if I want to go to that level, but why not? I'll shoot him an email. So I shot, the guy's name was Sam Ferguson. And Sam's one of the best things he's one of the best people to ever come in my life. But
Okay.
I sent him an email on that Monday. 20 minutes later, he called me. And we talked for about 20 minutes. We found out we had mutual connections. He did his doctorate at the same school that I did my master's. So connected with this random guy in Texas who's from Virginia. And then next thing I know, he asked me if I wanted to fly down for an interview. And nobody's invited me to their campus yet at this point. And so I'm thinking, you know, 37 tries, I haven't been to a campus. Let's do this.
Yeah.
He flew me down, and it was awesome, man. And just being around the staff, it was a smaller school, getting to know the people and just seeing the camaraderie here and how close-knit the family was, and hearing their values of how they're geared towards being servant leaders and doing community service, and then hearing about what I was going to be doing. I got excited. And so they offered me the job on the spot. I was in the car with my future's boss, and he said, Mike, you know, if hypothetically, if you were to take this job, you know, what would be your drawbacks? I said, well, I'm pretty young for a director position. You know, he said, well, man, you know, consider this a leap of faith for both of us.
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay. But he said, you know, I want to offer you the job. And I said, okay, well, this is great. And we felt like it was a good fit for both of us. I called my parents and I said, hey, I'm moving across the country. How do you feel? Mm-hmm. They were on board. I was surprised, but they were on board. I called my mentors, called all, you know, the people that, you know, knew a little bit about my journey at that time. And they said, dude, take the job. I think it's a great opportunity. And I took the job July 4th weekend. And then I flew out July 28th to start the job. And man, Xavier, I'm telling you, it's been the biggest blessing to be here. The scholar athletes here are so grateful that it's almost like Division III gives you a second chance where, you know, maybe you're overlooked for, you know, a certain, you know, role, or maybe you didn't get a scholarship because we're non-scholarship. And so you kind of see like these athletes that are also students fighting for a chance. And they're so grateful to be here. And that makes my job such a blessing to be able to promote them and promote their stories. And that's where I came around in my career to realize this is no longer about me. This is about promoting them and promoting this university. And that's kind of my story with that. I hope I answered your question. I know were you asking what I'm doing now, or
hey, look,
I went into a lot there.
No, look, man, and that makes my job easier, right? But I want to say this to you, man. I was reading a book. It was Ernie Johnson, and I believe that the book was called Unscripted. And essentially, he just talked a lot about how the greatest things in life happen when you least expect it, right? And it's going to be stuff that you had no idea was ever going to pan out. And it seems to me that happened to you with McMurry, right? Because again, you said that you were, and again, there's nothing wrong with it, but you were shooting for Kansas State, South Carolina, and other schools like that. And you know, some people in your position may scoff at a D3 school, and they may be like, well, you know, I don't really necessarily know about that. There's a positive in everything. And I love how you highlighted the fact that these guys and gals, of course, love being there, because it's almost like nobody else really gave me a shot. And they did. And because of that, you're typically really, really grateful when, you know, you seek out so many people or places, and not everybody is really receptive, but there's one who believed in you. And that one kind of gets your whole heart. You know what I mean? And not just you, man, but the athletes as well, and you know, maybe staff, whoever. But you know, man, I'm just so happy that you're really, really enjoying where you're at, man.
Yeah, and here's the thing, man. I've gotten calls to, you know, for jobs that were back home. I didn't even apply for any of these jobs, but I got a call from a friend like, hey, there's a job open in Alabama. Would you think about coming back home? You know, I got a call from a D1 school that was like, hey, we have an opening. You should apply and at least interview. And, you know, for whatever reason, you would think at that time, like, yeah, take it, right? Get back to where you thought you wanted to be. But then I didn't have to think twice. I was happy here. I said, no, you know, I was given this opportunity, and I've been open-minded with my boss pretty much since I've been here. And I've been able to tell him all these things. And he's been so supportive. He's like, man, well, I'm just happy you're here, and anything we could do to make it easier for you. And in return, I want to make it easier for them. I want to give all that I have to this place because it gave so much to me. And I think the pinnacle of success, and this is just, I guess, my 26-year-old advice at this point. If I could go back in time and give myself advice, I would say, Mike, don't shoot for, you know, a higher level. Don't shoot for what you think. Don't let success be measured that way. Let your success be measured by how happy you are. Absolutely. And how you're making an impact on the community you're in. And I think right now at this point in my life, and probably down the road, this place is where I can make the best impact. And that's the advice I would give to anybody trying to break in. You know, it is what you make it. It's not, you know, the opportunity. I know some people might say it is what it is. You know, wherever I end up, it is what it is. No, it is what you make it. You can make a position. You can make a career for yourself. You just have to make the most of where you're at. This place has given me so much, and I'm so grateful to McMurry, to Abilene, and to all the places that set me up to be here.
Absolutely, man. And look, again, admire the mindset, the work ethic, being a jack of all trades, never giving up, and just staying focused, and understanding, again, happiness is not defined by having the highest title, right? Because at the end of the day, we're all human. And how happy are you really truly in what you're doing? Are you being a better version of yourself? Are you helping other people become better versions of them? All that stuff is really, really what matters, man. And you really maximize that. And I know that you're going to continue to maximize it. I want to ask you this before we part ways. I don't want to hold you too long, but, you know, I did tell you that I was going to ask you this, and I need to know. Mount Rushmore. I need your 4 sports broadcasters. Mount Rushmore. Let me know.
All right. Man, I'm so excited to answer this, and I want to hear yours too. I'm just so curious because there's so many ways that you could go with this. But for me, I wanted to make my Mount Rushmore play-by-play guys.
Okay.
I think play-by-play is almost kind of the pinnacle of broadcasting.
Gotcha.
So, and for me also, I'm a fan of all 4 major sports. So I think so that's the way I went with my Mount Rushmore, one from each of the 4 major sports. First off, Vin Scully. That's a guy, he's been with the Dodgers for a long time, probably the longest tenured broadcaster of all time. That's a guy that just, to me, embodies the idea of this game is not about me calling the game. This is about the game itself. And hearing some of his World Series calls, hearing some of his, you know, just regular game calls, he really embodied that humility in his calls. And it was just so great. You know, let the crowd take it away. You know, in that final moment, we feel like we have to say the perfect words. We have to talk over everything. Vin Scully just let the action happen and let the crowd take it away when that World Series moment happened. He's also just been able to have that longevity that we all desire. And for him to do it as long as he did, and it's amazing to me. So Vin Scully's in mine. Football, Al Michaels. His Miracle on Ice call was amazing to me. You know, it's, you know, that's going to stick with you a long time. And all that he did on Monday Night Football. And I think, you know, Pat Summerall was kind of a runner-up for me for this. I thought of Jim Nantz as well, but I went Al Michaels. I just think that all that he was able to do for broadcasting. I think he deserves it. For basketball, this was tough too, but I went Kevin Harlan for
love Kevin.
my Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
What's that?
I love Kevin Harlan.
I do too, man. And, it was really close between him and Marv Albert. I also really love Gus Johnson because I think Gus just brings an energy that nobody else matches. I think that Marv Albert is just so tactical with his broadcast. I think Kevin Harlan's a little bit of both of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a perfect mix of, a guy like Marv Albert and a guy like Gus Johnson. So I've always looked up to Kevin Harlan. His classic broadcasting of a cat running on the field, his classic radio calls. I think Kevin Harlan's just a wordsmith like no other.
Yes.
So he's in my Mount Rushmore. And once again, these guys aren't necessarily my favorite broadcasters, but these are guys that I just believe are at the pinnacle of their sport and at the pinnacle of their game. And last but not least, the guy that is my favorite broadcaster of all time, Doc Emmerich. His hockey broadcasting is second to none to me. I think the thing that I learned most from watching Doc Emmerich do hockey games, Stanley Cup games, and a lot of people are hockey fans, but as Max Kellerman so rudely pointed out this week, Doc Emmerich really just he narrates a story, and every time he opens a broadcast, he just opens up perfectly. It's almost like watching Bob Costas do the 1990 basketball games. It's like you hear those stories, Doc Emmerich telling the story of the game, and it sets up the entire broadcast. And nobody did that better to me than Doc Emmerich. So he's in my Mount Rushmore. So those are my four.
And look, it's very refreshing to hear somebody break it down who's participated in that, right? Because you kind of look at it from a different angle than somebody who's maybe not, who's just watching the sport just because they enjoy the sport, right? But
Sure.
To me, there are certain broadcasters who, if they're calling a game, and let's say I'm kind of indifferent about the two teams, I'm probably going to watch it because I know that they can really tell a story, but also not make it about them, and just really, really enhance the art form. That's really what I like. And for me, man, my favorite play-by-play commentator currently is Kevin Harlan. I absolutely love Kevin Harlan. I also love Ian Eagle. I think he is so tremendous. And in basketball, I do like Mike Breen. But, my sports broadcaster, Mount Rushmore, is going to be a tad different from yours, right? Because you did stick the route of play-by-play guys. And for me, I guess I'm kind of looking at it from all different aspects of what you do, right? Reporting, journalism, TV personalities, play-by-play guys, and so forth, right? So I think that the first guy I would have to say for me would be Stuart Scott. He's the reason why I actually want to get into the business, right? I remember, growing up watching him on TV. He was so cool, so smooth, so funny, so witty whenever he's doing highlights. And I also remember when I would play NFL 2K5 and
Yes,
I would play like the franchise mode, and he was the voice essentially of the game.
the one with T.O. on the cover.
Yeah, man. Stu just had something to where he just kind of made me believe that I could do that, but I could still be myself in doing that, right? So always got love for Stu. He's, again, the reason why I want to do this. The second guy is he's very polarizing, if you would, right? But I would say next would be Stephen A. And it's not necessarily because I may not necessarily like everything he does, says, or how he goes about it, but I appreciate the journey that he took, right? And he literally rose from nothing to the top dog at ESPN. And to me, that's something that I have the ultimate respect for. I think he is truly, he kind of changed the game a little bit. Him and Skip kind of changed the game with their show First Take and having debate shows. That kind of sparked other networks to do it. And now other people are trying to create that, whether it's, their own personal projects or own smaller networks. So Stephen A is definitely on there for me. Kevin Harlan is on there. I love his longevity of being a play-by-play guy. Again, he's my favorite. He just he has this excitement about him, man. You know what I mean? But it doesn't feel forced, Mike. It feels very natural.
Sure.
And I really, really love Kevin Harlan. Last but not least, man, it's kind of difficult and it's going to be a little bit interchangeable down the road. I would say right now I'd have to go Mike Wilbon. And I really appreciate him from a journalism standpoint.
Sure.
I think he is one of the most brilliant minds out there. PTI has always been a staple in my life. That used to be my favorite show growing up on ESPN. Him and Tony Kornheiser are like this. Their chemistry is
Beautiful.
absolutely.
They're great, man.
And look, they actually started here at the Washington Post, and how they got their show was pretty nuts. Rumor has it that they would always yell at one another back and forth, and somebody said, "Y'all need a TV show," and they
Yeah,
kind
just
of
put it
had.
on TV.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
wonder if that's the same thing with Skip and Stephen A. It has to be. It's great.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, it's nuts. So, Will Bond to me, I call him the Godfather. A lot of people call him the Godfather, but he's just somebody to where I really, really respect him. I respect the way he approaches subject matters, sports, and real life stuff too. Will Bond to me just kind of has a calming presence about certain things whenever things get kind of rigid and turbulence occurs. But somebody else who I really, really admire, not necessarily on my Mount Rushmore, but I really, really admire Maria Taylor. I think she is absolutely amazing. She is just like you, always working, always doing something, right? Like she's doing college football. She's doing even college basketball, I think. And then she does the NBA now. So, and then she does Get Up sometimes. She's just everywhere. And I think I look at her, Mike, and I think, wow, she is so natural on camera. And to me, I believe that she's just being her natural self. And she makes it look so easy, man. And again, you can learn from anybody. Back in the days, it would have been crazy to say that you could learn from a woman in this business, but I think she is absolutely transcendent.
Man, and women in the business, it's great to see how it's developed so much because I've heard people make comments. I don't want to hear a woman do play-by-play, or I don't want to hear a woman do anything other than studio work. And I just thought that was so awful to hear. And to see what Beth Mowins has done, for example, doing play-by-play for Monday Night Football, I thought she did a fantastic. I enjoyed that broadcast so much, and I enjoy her work. I enjoy Maria Taylor's work. I'm a Nashville Predators fan, so Lindsay Rowley, she's the sideline reporter for them and does the studio work. She's amazing. I think women in broadcasting, and I thought your Mount Rushmore was incredible, man. Stuart Scott, so deserving to be on that list. But, I also think of people that have transcended their sports that they broadcasted in. And, one guy I actually considered for my Mount Rushmore, if I didn't do the play-by-play thing, was Ahmad Rashad. And once again, The Last Dance really just showed how much of an impact he had on the NBA. Yes. Because, there were guys like I think there was one scene where one of the players, I think it was Longley or somebody, had a camera, and they said, "Yeah, I'm the new Ahmad." And that's all he had to say. You don't even have to say his last name. You know that you're talking about Ahmad Rashad. He's like the NBA guy. Or like you think about MLB or NFL, Adam Scheffler is kind of the guy.
Yeah.
There's just names that come to mind right away. Gary Thorne was always one that I enjoyed. He called all of the NHL, and he was kind of the video game broadcaster, but he transcended himself as well. Mike Tirico is another guy that I really look up to. His studio work, his delivery, his play-by-play. There's so many broadcasters you can mention for this. So making a Mount Rushmore, Zay, was really hard, but we've been able to just name all these awesome broadcasters that we look up to and want to be like, just journalists in general. And dude, you're going to be there one day.
Hey man, that's love, Mike. I really appreciate it. Final question, man, and this was just for fun because I just want to know if they came to you and said, Mike, we'll pay you X amount of dollars, but you have to do this for the rest of your life. You can only call one sport. Which sport would it be?
Hockey. Man.
Really?
It is going to shock a lot of people because I think when I knew you, or when you knew me, kind of like, and we lived in the same city, I wasn't as into hockey at that point, but over the last 2-3 years, I've just really fallen in love with the game of hockey. Watching two guys throw the gloves down and throw punches at each other, but then they just like pick each other up after, shake hands, whatever, go to the penalty box. That's just, I don't know. That was kind of one part of the game that was like, okay, this is kind of weird, but I kind of like it.
Yeah.
But then just, it's difficult to skate, to do what they do. I would love to get into hockey broadcasting and do that and be a hockey SID. I think it would be difficult just because I haven't been around the sport that long. But
gotcha.
I guess a runner-up would probably be baseball, admittedly.
Gotcha.
I've always just loved the game of baseball, football and basketball too. There's so many others, and being an SID, I'm involved in 21 athletic programs here. So I've fallen in love with games like tennis, volleyball, track and field is definitely one of my favorite sports because we have national champions here. Swimming, I've learned swimming, so there's such a variety. But if I had to pick one, man, I'm kind of into hockey, and I'm sure for you it's basketball, right?
Oh, you already know, right? The poster speaks for itself. You know what I mean?
The photo speaks for itself, no doubt. But dude, I know you could do more than one if you wanted to, and your Wizards coverage has been awesome. Your football for high school up there has been awesome. I've been following you, man, and anything I could do to help you or anything you could probably do to help me, we're here for each other, and I love that.
Absolutely, man. So look, again, Mike, I don't want to take any more of your time than I already have, Mr. Busy Man.
No.
But look, man, more than anything, thank you. Because again, there are a lot of people in a position like me or maybe coming up and they need to hear from somebody who's in the business, right? And who's still young and who can really spread knowledge, wisdom, and encouragement to people. So man, just thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this, Mike. I really, really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. And the last bit of advice I could give is find mentors. Don't go into this by yourself thinking that, you can figure it out on your own. Find people to be mentors in every aspect of your life. Find mentors for your career. Find mentors for your spiritual life. Find mentors for your personal life. Find mentors for every aspect to make you a better person and figure out, hey, what can I do to help? And man, Zay, I've looked up to you in that regard. You've helped me be a better person, and do that for somebody else. That's pass it, pay it forward.
Absolutely.
That's what I want to leave you with.
Absolutely, man. Well, again, Mike, thank you so much, brother. I hope that you have a blessed rest of your day. All right.
Thanks, Zay. I appreciate you having me on.
All right, man. Take it easy.
You too, man.